Hello, lovers. Welcome to Heart, the Living Spiritfully podcast. I am Paul Galoro, your host of this experience. And in this podcast, I have heart-centered conversations with people that I find intriguing, that I adore, and that have a special place in my heart. And today's guest is a woman that just came into my life unexpectedly and has helped me in so many ways. Claudia Buscemi Prestigiacomo I met her back in 2018. She was my Italian teacher. And for me, learning Italian, having Italian parents, not speaking the language myself, in 2016, I had this calling to get reacquainted with my heritage. And the whole journey of studying the language and learning the language and spending time in Italy has been so healing for me. And I share a little bit of that with Claudia. And she also shares how the study of languages helped heal her relationship with her biological father. This is my Heart to Heart with Claudia Buscemi Prestigiacomo. I am here with a woman who has changed my life. And I don't know if you remember me telling you this story in tears last summer before I went to Italy. But please welcome my dear friend and my Italian teacher and angel in my life, Claudia Buscemi Prestigiacomo. Welcome.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Hi.
How are you? I'm so happy to see you. We haven't seen each other since
March.
I just want to share the story of how we met. Now, I met you before we met through Sharon, one of my dear friends, and she was in your class. And while I was in Italy, Sharon said, Paul, come back to Italian, because I'd been studying Italian for a year and a half. Then I went to Italy to study, and then I came back. And I had to continue. And Sharon said, okay, you're going to love Claudia. She's amazing. And I was like, okay. So then I show up in class. It was October 2018. And I don't know if you remember this. I remember it happened just yesterday. We were sitting at the long table. I was at the end. And you're talking. And I'm like this the whole time. And then I burst into tears in the middle of class. But I was trying to hide them because I'm like, I just met this woman. I don't want her to think I'm crazy. But I was crying because I felt so at home and I felt such a deep connection to you. So, and then ever since then, you've pushed me, you've taught me so much, and I just am so in love with you and the way you look at life and the way you approach language and everything about you, basically. You've been a very important person in my life, and that's why I'm just so honored that you're here.
In my life.
Really? Me?
Oh, yes.
Because
I remember the day. It was nice. It was unexpected for me, your reaction. But I felt the same. When you entered the classroom, it was like the sun. So lots of light and bright and happiness to me. And I loved it. And then you made me cry too a few weeks later, if you remember. So usually I don't cry. Now, after I met you, I always have this in my classroom, just in case.
This is what happens when kindred spirits meet again in the physical plane. So on that note, dimmi, come si sente il tuo cuore? How is your heart?
My heartbeat is very high. I'm happy. And it is very strange for me to be here right now and answering this question. I usually don't do this because I use the word shy. I'm not sure if it's the right word or if it's insecure the right word. I'm not sure. You know that I always try to push my students and friends out of their comfort zone. And so today is my day to show that you can actually do that. So I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone, doing something that I usually don't do, or maybe if you had asked me to do that a few months ago, I wouldn't have accepted, not because I don't like the project, your project, but just because of me.
Well, tell you what, I'll hold on to your hand. We'll both plug our nose and jump off the rock and into the sea together.
Perfect. Deal.
I love that. One of the reasons why I wanted to have this heart to heart with you is because when I started to study the language, I was very impatient with myself because I went obviously all the way to the basics, learning this is the color brown, this is what the weather's like, as one does when they start learning a language. But I had so much in my heart that I wanted to share and say, but I didn't know quite how to express. Then when I was in Italy in 2019, I had a conversation with my roommate, and we talked about meditation. We talked about Mercury retrograde in Italian. It was broken and it was slow, and I was reaching for wordreference.com quite a bit, but I was able to have that conversation. And for me, that came from the conversations that we would have in class. One of the things that I did notice was you pay attention to your students, and then you find what interests them, and then you speak to them there and get them speaking about that. So it's like yeah, and that's amazing to me, because you find the spark, you find what lights them up, and then you just sort of allow them to shine in a different language, which for me, it was just so amazing. But we would have a lot of these like deep conversations, but I always felt like I want to say so many things, but I don't have the language for it. Like literally, I did not have the Italian equivalent to engage in the conversation. So your outlook on life and even just the other thing that I love is your approach to learning is so, like, you've given me just the way you approach how to learn something new. You've given me tools in life and how to approach something new. Tell me what's going on. Like, how have things been for you since March?
It was tough on one end. I started meditating, something that I didn't expect to do. And it worked. It helped me. You know that I like swimming. I love swimming, and I couldn't swim. Mm-hmm. So I had to readjust. But you know as well that I tend to readjust easily. I moved from one country to another country. I switched languages. So I like that part of the journey, when our life journey.
Right. So you were born speaking Italian. You learned English, French, Spanish.
Spanish, French.
Okay, English, Spanish, French. And then and now you're learning new languages.
No, I invested a lot on my French. And then in April, I told my husband, I think I'm going to start learning Mandarin. So I'm not learning yet. I can't say I'm learning, but I'm actually familiarizing with certain sounds, and I think that might be a next step.
Wow, you just blow my mind all the time. That's amazing.
And actually, Paolo, you know what happened yesterday? My son loves anime. So I didn't have any culture on that, like zero, like zero. But I realized that I was missing an important part of his life. So I said, okay, you know what? Let's choose something we can watch together. Okay. So yesterday we started watching an anime, and I realized that while they were speaking, not English, we were watching the original one, he was saying, this means thing, this means thank you, this means, I was like, sorry, how do you know that? Second, no, because I've been watching, and then once they repeat the same thing and you look at the scene and you understand that that's the meaning. And I was very impressed by that, and I realized exactly this is the way it works. My son is learning a new language, completely different through that. So I was missing that experience. So now joining his experience, I thought maybe I should change. I should switch to Japanese. I don't know. So I don't know, but I will keep adding languages. I will keep doing that for the rest of my life.
That's amazing. I love that. Like I said, you've given me so many insights to how to learn a language that I then applied to like life in general. What do you recommend for someone who is interested in studying a language? Maybe, you know, I've read that, you know, once you hit 40, your brain isn't able to learn a new language. I don't know if this is true or not, but what do you recommend for someone that's learning a brand new language that's never had exposure to it before, but has an interest in?
I would recommend not to read articles on languages learning. Just go for it. Just go for it. This is what I mean is there are lots of course, scientific theories around languages, and we all know that kids are, like we say, sponges because they learn a language sooner and easier than adults. But it's a different type of journey when they learn than our journey, right? So we can compare. It's not easier or more difficult. It's not that the point, or that cannot be a barrier that we put between us and the language that we want to learn. Right. Whatever we are going to learn, maybe we are not going to be fluent on one language, but whatever we learn, even 3 words, 4 words, we know 4 extra words that we didn't know before, and we enjoyed while we were learning them, right? So in terms of kids, I would say they learn through exposure, and they repeat easily. It's more like a game. But when you learn as an adult, I find it, I love it actually, because into it you bring your entire story, your life. And while you're learning it, everything changes. Like even your life changes. The way you see your life, or you have been seeing or considering your life, changes. So it can be very overwhelming, but it's worth the effort to do that. Yeah. So what should a person do? Just pick a language, search for someone who can teach you that language if you really want to learn it, and go for it. This Simple. Is what I do. Simple. Yes, this is what I do. What I see around is we tend to, with the internet, which is a blessing, especially in COVID, etc. But there's also something that we tend to miss, which is the thing that we don't know. Okay, so we want to get to that point knowing already everything. Like you said, I wanted to speak fluently. But when you do that, I think that you are already putting some limits. And if you do that, the journey becomes less fun, and it gives you less. So I have people coming, I read this about languages and this method, and there's this man in somewhere like a remote country who's using this, but at the end, I mean, you read all these documents, you're not speaking the language. You could have used the same amount of time, and you would be already like at the end of a beginner 1 session, for example. Okay. You would know maybe the alphabet. So I don't know if it's clear what I'm trying to say, but that is my approach. Go for it. You want to learn it? find a way to learn it. So contact a person or use an app to start with, just to see if you really like the sound of a language. You have to fall in love with the sound too. That helps.
Yes.
I think it's easy.
But it's interesting what you say about, like, you know, the people that go and do all the search on how to learn a language and blah, blah, blah. I know because I did that too. But it's interesting because it's in so many ways. I see that with some of my clients as well. It's like they get so caught up in the how to that they forget the to do part.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like, doesn't matter just as long as you do it. And you really sort of brought that home for me when I was, because how many times did I come into class early and basically have a breakdown in front of you because I'm like, I just don't get it. As I reflect now, I recognize those as those growing pains.
Exactly.
Those moments where I'm like, oh, where just before you have that breakthrough, it's like you've been hitting the wall to try to break through, and then you're just like, I can't get it, and then you just gave me that, just come on, one more time, and then you hit it, and then all of a sudden it's like the whole world opens up, and you're like, whoa, now it's even bigger.
And there's another thing that I always tell my students, that it's a double experience. It's a two-way experience, right? When you're in class, you are in class as a student. I'm in class as a teacher, but I'm also a student. Okay, so I'm learning. You said you look at each of us but it's the same for me. So from each of you, I learn something. And sometimes when you feel that the expectations, let's talk about expectations, a teacher, instructor expectation, or my expectations. I can't talk for everyone. But my expectations, I know that I push a lot my students, and I don't expect, if I ask something that is like a mountain, I don't expect them to reach the top of the mountain right away. But I'm super happy when I see that they could take 2 steps towards that peak, right? Just 2 steps. So while you feel possibly in that specific moment, you feel the frustration because you think, oh, I don't get it. On the other hand, on my side, I feel the joy that I notice that if you're frustrated, that means that it's working, right? It's working. So, and if you're crying, it means that you really, really want to get there. So, and maybe even the most amazing things is that you're crying, but you're speaking Italian. So you're crying in Italian, right?
Yeah.
And that is amazing. And to me, that is all about, unless you have to work as a translator, but most of the people, or most of my students, learn a language because of their background. They learn a language because they want to travel to Italy, or just because they want to do something different, right? So there is not even the frustration or the pressure of, I have to take the test. If I don't pass my life, and even if you don't pass a test, you retake it. It's not even that a problem, right? This is another story. And so because of that, it is actually the journey that you have to enjoy, that I like to enjoy as a student, because again, I keep studying for 2 reasons. The first, maybe it's because I'm a nerd, probably. And it's like my problem, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay. And no, but joking aside, the reason why I keep studying is because I like this journey and I like to learn. I need to learn. And the second is because I don't want to lose that knowledge, or how the student feels, like a student feels when you can't express yourself in the other language, when you know exactly what you want to say, but you don't have the words, right? And everything seems to become simple or easier, or I don't know, like shallow. And it's not shallow because deep inside it's deeper what you want to say. So I don't want to lose that awareness. And to do that, I have to study new languages because I have to be in the position where I am the one who doesn't have the words.
So I've always understood this, but it wasn't until I started studying a language just really how powerful words are. And then especially studying Italian, because I notice in English, I'm like, I'm excited. I say that all the time. And then what I learned when I do the literal translation of I'm excited doesn't quite fit the same in Italian.
Good for you, but...
Yes. But it opened up a whole new world of possibility just in word itself.
Exactly.
And then I learned so many more ways to express I'm excited in Italian, which then helped me express it in even different ways in English. Exactly. And it was almost like I got stagnant in my English language, that studying a new language revitalized the old language. And it just, it opens up so much. It changes life.
It changes.
Yeah, because I think you had shared a quote on Instagram, something about learning a language and it being life-changing. I don't remember.
Yeah, no, it's a different language is a different vision of life.
Yes.
It's Federico Fellini. It's a quote from Federico Fellini.
I love that.
Which is true. And you said words, right? Words. And you say, for example, excited, and you learn that in the other language. And it's not only that. You learn about you, but you understand other people better too. And I give an example in Canada. So the beauty of Canada is that it's very multicultural and people speak all languages here. So it's the world in one place. And I often notice in class that sometimes I say, for example, Italian Canadians here say, for example, maybe you heard your nonna or your non or your father saying that specific word. And then the reason why they are saying that is because in Italian, we use that word rather than that in English or vice versa. And I often notice that when this happens, sometimes students are like, whoa, because it changed completely. It completely changes the vision they had of their family. Mm-hmm. Right? So the struggle, the difficulty, and it changes. When you learn a language, especially if you learn the language of your parents or your grandparents, and you struggle through that, you have to ask yourself, how could they do that back in time? How difficult that was for them, right? So the vision you have of them, I think, changes a lot. In my opinion, it changes a lot. And it creates new bonds, new ties, new connections with them at different layers that have nothing to do with the language itself, but the language was like the trigger.
Yeah.
The word was the trigger.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, it's interesting that you bring that up because I started studying Italian in 2016. It was January 2016. I was sitting in my parents' kitchen and it was like I heard this voice that said, go learn Italian. And up until that point, I had no interest. I had no interest of going to Italy. I had no interest in even being Italian. And I started to explore it, and I'll never forget, 6 months in, I got into a huge fight with my parents because I wanted to, study the language, and I wanted to go live in Italy, and my dad had made a comment that was not exactly this, but it was along the lines of, we worked so hard to come here, and now you want to go back. And I didn't get it, but then having spent time in Italy, understanding what the country is like, but then also understanding the struggle that my parents went through. Like you said, understanding, okay, they learned how to speak like this and what this meant. I have a better understanding of my parents. I have a much more mature relationship with them now. Yes, I'm an adult, but up until 6 years ago, I had a very childish relationship with them. You know, I didn't appreciate them. I didn't, all of that stuff. But it was going back to the roots, understanding the struggle that my parents went through, exactly. Being young children coming to this country and all of their history, getting to the point. So it just totally opened my eyes. And what's interesting is I was married to this story for a while, but I decided to break up with it. This idea that we didn't speak Italian at home because my dad spoke Calabrese and my mother was from Molise, and so they had different dialects. But I try not to subscribe to that as much now, but I get excited when I hear one of my older aunts or uncles speaking, and then I know some of the things that they're saying, so then I'll turn to my dad and I'll be like, oh, she said this, and this. And my dad doesn't show much emotion, but he's just like, yeah. And so that's
a different journey.
Exactly.
That is your personal journey.
Exactly. But that like connected us in a way. Whereas before, when I was young, I would just sort of sit there and not have an understanding of anything. And so that just the studying the Italian culture, the language, living there for a period of time, and then just all of it just shifted my perception of my parents and my upbringing and all sorts of stuff. And it has healed many, many layers that I don't think like therapy would have ever been able to do for me. So
for me, it's the same. Very similar healing process through languages.
Yeah, it's amazing. Are you open to sharing some of your healing journey through languages?
Oh, yeah, sure. Why not? I start from my last name. Okay. So my last name is the key. So when you said Claudia Buscemi Prestigiacomo, right? And then you asked me how my heart was. And I said, he's beating so fast because I learned in Canada how to appreciate my Claudia Buscemi Prestigiacomo name. And that goes back to when I was a kid. So Buscemi was my biological father, and keep that. So Buscemi is my biological father. The other day I was wondering, why did I study languages? Why? When all this started? Because I don't remember. I didn't remember, or I didn't want to remember. I don't know. So my biological father used to work in tourism, okay? And I don't have any contact with him. I'm not in contact with him. I used to as a child. So he used to work in tourism. And I remember as a child, those few times that I would see him, he would always speak like bonjour, mademoiselle, or good morning, Miss Claudia, languages, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember that I was so in love with this man who didn't deserve my love, rather, except for the fact that he gave me life, which is a big thing, by the way. That one of my thing growing up was that I would play going around the city or my house, my bedroom, pretending I was speaking other languages. Okay, so I would go around the room doing like, where is the rain? Making sound, no languages. Okay, so that was me. His wife was German tourist guide. And as far as I know, because this is what they said, I don't know at this point, she was able to speak, I don't know how many languages, okay?
Okay.
So that is one part. But I studied, I did my life, I saw them basically zero. And long story short, I finished my high school. It's time for me to decide what I want to study. So, of course, I studied archaeology. I decided to study archaeology, nothing to do with languages. But that tells you also that I wanted to travel, right? So I always felt that I needed to know everything all around the world, different cultures, different people, different stories. I didn't pass the test. So sometimes if we don't pass a test, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I didn't pass the test. And at that point, it was September. And my stepfather, who later adopted me, that's why Prestigiacomo, told me out of the blue, Claudia, I think you should study languages. And I said, languages? Yeah, I think you should study languages. So I said, okay, let's try. And on top of that, I didn't want to teach because I always said, I'm not going to teach ever. And then I went through university, I studied languages. And when I graduated, after my graduation, I met my biological father for some reason. Actually, I was looking for peace. I had to tell him that he was not a father. And I needed to tell him, looking at him in his eyes, because he deserved to know, and I deserved that closure too. And one of the first things that he said, why do you talk to me like that? Do you think you are the best because you are graduated now? That moment killed me. But I said, yes, I am the best. And the best part came when one day I realized that person who was speaking many languages to me didn't know any of those languages. He knew just good morning, bonjour, but by doing that, he always made me feel as if I was missing the best out there, right? Because he was traveling, he was meeting people and people coming, and he could speak languages. And then I would go back home until next time he would just show up and ask and tell me, oh, I went to this place, amazing, bonjour, again, another language. So I realized that I had been waiting for something that didn't exist really.
Right.
But on the other hand, I created my own path, and here I am. And I study languages and I speak languages. And I truly believe that words are important because I healed through words, reading different languages, different perspectives. And when I was in Italy, until a few years ago, when I was in Italy, on one hand, I started saying, okay, my name is Claudia Prestigiacomo. So after I got my second last name, I said, okay, my name is Claudia Prestigiacomo. And then don't call me Buscemi. I'm not Buscemi, Claudia Prestigiacomo. But a few years ago in Canada, I realized, no, I am Claudia Buscemi Prestigiacomo, because in my last name, there's an entire life. There's a journey. There's a journey through languages. There's a journey through challenges. There's a journey through... It is my journey. I am Claudia Buscemi. I'm proudly Claudia Buscemi Prestigiacomo. I don't want to sound like arrogant. I don't mean that.
No, I get it, what you're saying, though. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, that languages and my last name and what I do, it's all part of, it all started there. And maybe this man had the role in my life was to give me that. I don't know. Or maybe it was nothing. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. I'm not upset. It doesn't matter. No, it's not the point now. The point is I am who I am. I can improve myself. I can't wait to see the upgraded version of myself in future. And I hope to express that when I teach. This is sometimes it happened to me that some students, because of frustration, told me, yeah, but you're a happy camper. You didn't have challenges. You can tell your life was happy. And this is something that I learned too in class, right? We don't know. We don't know. We all have our story. We all have our struggles. And so we should embrace that journey just because it's empowering, because it's fun. We don't need to be harsh because we don't know, really. We don't, what do we know? Basta.
Wow, thank you for sharing that, because because that's never come up in class, but
I think it's the first time in my life I'm actually vocalizing that.
Oh wow.
I think so. I'm not sure I ever said that even to myself, but it's true.
Look what happens when we tap into our heart. When you tell me that story, I now recognize where that strength that I feel from you. I see where you got that. Beautiful.
I don't know. It helped me. It helped me.
For sure.
But I think we grow, those type of challenges make us grow, I don't know, taller and stronger and
it's
brighter. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then on top of that, you have to choose. We have options. I was not like this. I remember, I think once I told you, I was a very serious person, meaning I didn't like to smile a lot. And actually, when I moved to Canada, I was teaching for another institute. And I remember there was one day they said, there is going to be a supervisor during the class, your class. So it's going to evaluate the way you teach, the way you deliver your classes, etc. So that was my first year in Canada, okay? And I was very serious, even because I was a younger teacher. So you think that you have to be serious, very, very professional. And then, thank God, you drop this. And then you're like, no. So I did my class, and I had to say from 8 to 8:05, I'm going to say that, 8:10, So long story short, after a while, like 1 week later, I received my report card, okay, my evaluation. And it was like, good, excellent, amazing. I was very proud. I was a very proud teacher back then, until I reached the bottom of the report card, where there was a note saying, you need to smile more. And when you see that on your report card, that hurts.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, why don't I smile? And now I have people saying, why are you always smiling? Why are you smiling? I don't know. That was a big shock. So I guess now I'm smiling even when I'm crying. But it's a choice. So I tell my mom, happiness is a choice. We can't wait for others to give us happiness. because we have to find that happiness. We have to find our happiness no matter what. That doesn't mean that I don't cry. I cry, I meditate, I cry, and then I cry again.
And then another spoonful of Nutella, and then more crying.
After Nutella, then I eat a jar of Nutella. But yes, so now I smile.
Yeah, yeah. What you said earlier with students saying, you haven't had challenges. I don't think what people understand is when you've had those challenges and you recognize, happiness is a choice, you're going to choose that.
Exactly.
Right?
And you have to work on that, right?
Yes. Yeah. I was going to say, I know from my experience, it's not easy to always choose the happiness. And sometimes you feel like you're pushing a boulder up a mountain, and then sometimes you just feel like I'm just going to let this boulder roll right over me because I don't got the strength. But then it's going back and continuing the trek up the mountain. It was like one of my previous guests said, every day with all the struggles that she goes through, she just makes the choice, wake up, be happy, and not throw pink paint on stuff, not fake it.
No.
Have the whole experience.
Exactly. No, I'm not talking about you have to smile all the time, you have to be happy all the time. It's not about that. It's not faking. Otherwise, that could be dangerous, right?
Oh, yeah.
That could turn into a bigger problem then. But no, you really, really mean it. And by the way, to make it less, to make my story less sad, I'm joking. When my students some students tell me, you don't have challenges, I always say, do you know my first year in Canada when I had to order an ice cup at Tim Hortons, how difficult that was? Which is true. Ask any newcomers to Canada, one of the most challenging things. Tim Hortons is one of those. For 1 year. Okay, I show you why languages are important. Okay. So my first year, I came here on vacation, and somebody made me try the ice cup. Okay, Tim Hortons ice cup, and I loved it. But back then I was still in Italy. That was very exotic. I didn't plan to move to Canada. So I moved to Canada, and I said, I want that ice cup. So first time, Tim Hortons, how can I help you? And I'm like, hi, I would like the coffee. So you don't know ice cup, right?
Yeah.
The coffee, cold coffee. And usually it's that is the sound, especially if you order through the drive-through, right? Yes. So my answer was yes. And yes. And a bagel. And then bagel is a nightmare because in Canada, how many types of bagels there are, right? So I said bagels, a bagel, what type of bagel? What is that? A plain? Yes. Okay, so I didn't know which one. Okay, and then I wanted cream cheese, but cream cheese in Italy, we don't call it cream cheese. For some reason, we call it Philadelphia, like the brand.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Nutella, Philadelphia. But they don't say Philadelphia.
Right.
So, yes, by the end of that conversation, for 1 year, I ended up with a cup, huge cup that I didn't want, of coffee with cubes floating, which for an Italian is like
blasphemy.
Yes, it's like, and a multi-grain bagel with Swiss cheese. And the next time I would try again and again. So, and it's just, you really want that ice cup, and you can get it. This is the frustration when,
Yes,
when you don't know the language.
I get it. I'm
Right?
suddenly like realizing how spoiled I was in Italy.
So it's easy for you, espresso,
See.
right?
Right.
So
Wow.
that is a challenge when you move, because you know why it is a challenge, because that is the only moment you use to is the moment you're relaxing among 2,000 things that you have to do, like more serious things that you have to do, like driving license and all those things, and understanding how school system works and the doctor. And not even that moment, that relaxing moment is relaxing, because you're so stressed that people don't understand you. But later on, I understood that it was easier. There was a picture. I should have pointed at the picture. That is the stress when you learn a new language. Like, don't stress, just relax and make it sound Italian, right? I always say that.
You always say it.
Make it sound Italian. Worst case scenario, you made up a new word, so it's fine.
Wow. Okay, when you put it that way, it was a cute little anecdote, but like I understand the frustration.
But it's fine. We laugh.
Yeah.
I laugh. For me, it's just like the most hilarious things that happened to me when
I can imagine you like driving through the drive-thru after you've been handed this literally ice in a coffee and your Swiss cheese bagel, and just getting frustrated and throwing it out the window.
Exactly.
And driving home.
Exactly. Driving home, if I was able to go back home, because everything was new. I got lost so many times, like, okay, let's do it again. There was another story. And about languages, another is what's the name of the song? Old MacDonald Had a Farm. Mm-hmm. You said the word excited. So, okay, let's talk about animal sounds.
Okay.
They are different.
Yes.
You know, right? From one country to another country.
Right.
So when you change country, you have to learn the sound of that animal, right?
Right.
No, you laugh. It's true.
Yeah.
I went to the library for a mom and taught program with my daughter, Maya. She was 1.5. I didn't know any song. It was my first week in Canada. Okay, my neighbor had invited me, so I said, okay, I go. So all these little Canadian kids eating Cheerios, something new for me too. Right. My daughter didn't have Cheerios, but she didn't have panino cotoletta either, right? So I arrived there and they start with Leads, Leads, Spider, I don't know, all these songs, nursery songs, none of them, okay? I started like, okay, my daughter she's looking at me, I'm not engaging, I'm not singing, that's not nice. Finally, Old MacDonald Had a Farm. So in my mind, I said, I know it. But it is different from between English and Italian. It is different. Mm-hmm. So the worst thing, so they said there's the cow, right? And a moo here and a moo there. In Italy, it's not like that. So we say like la mucca, and then you say moo. Okay, but cow, Italian cows and Canadian cows, they both moo.
Right. Easy.
The problem came with the horse, because apparently in Canada, horses do neigh, right? So, and people started saying, and a neigh here, and in Italy, we do ee. So, thank God, people didn't hear me. But I said, oh, in my mind, I say, oh, horse is neigh? Okay. Then there was the sheep and was a ba here, but in Italy is be. Okay, not bad. Ba, be. Okay, maybe it's just the accent, right? Mm-hmm. And finally, there was the pig. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you're recording. I don't know if I should do that.
I'm all for it. I'm loving this story already. So.
they start and then the pig, and as soon as they say and a oink oink here, picture that super awkward moment in which everyone is silent, when like everyone is like, and then there's the awkward moment of silence.
Yeah.
Exactly when I was super excited and I said, at the library, silence. And I was very loud, like super. Okay. And all the moms turn, and I'm like frozen. I wanted to die. I was like, please make me disappear now. This is the shame. My daughter would like, oh, that was so bad. And then I spent the rest of the week learning all animal sounds.
And you couldn't even get an ice cap to just cool down from that after.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Wow. But okay, I guess now you can look back and laugh. That was 8 years ago?
10.
10 years ago. Okay. Maya's 10. How old now? She's 11?
11, yeah.
Wow. My goodness, they grow so fast. I make it sound like I knew her when she was one.
But I know, you're right. Because it does, for me, it's like 10 years ago. Wow.
Wow.
When you have fun.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, right? My goodness, that's amazing. But like, look at you now. You know animal sounds and you get your ice caps when you want them.
I know. But I don't like it anymore. So
there you go.
But it's okay. It's okay. I can maybe I can create some sort of class for newcomers. How to order at Tim Hortons.
Yes. That makes me think of one of sort of the main things that you taught me in languages, in studying Italian and learning, is structure. Like you would always say when we were learning those challenging verb tenses or like congiuntivo and all of that stuff. I remember, like you said, just have your structures, have your like 4 or 5 sentences in that mood or that tense that your just go-to things. And the creative in me and the love of words in me didn't like that because I always wanted to create something new. But when you said that to me, not only did I apply that to language, but I apply that to life. And so it's like having my structure, even like with this podcast, I have my structure. I record it on certain days and then I release it on certain days so that it just makes everything easier. That was a huge life lesson that came out of your...
We need structures.
Yes.
And for example, is one of the things that I wanted to point out on my website was that because I said as a student, the idea was as a student, I like to push myself out of the comfort zone and enjoy this experience that is both challenging and fun. But as an instructor and as a person, I truly believe we need structures, especially when it comes to languages. In life in general, but I don't want to be the philosopher here, so I'm just talking about what I know.
All right.
And so we need structures because it makes the journey easier on one end, and we need strong foundations. Without strong foundations, your journey is going to be lacking of something. Mm-hmm. And another thing that I learned actually when I was learning Spanish with one of the most strict teacher I have ever met in my life, he said this: you have to know how to write, because when you write, you need a structure, right? Mm-hmm. If you learn how to write, you learn the language, meaning the fluency. speaking or the accent or other things will come eventually, right? You can train yourself on that. But if you don't have that structure, if you don't have your foundation, that strong foundation, you will forget the language. And this is what I often hear, right? So, for example, in Canada, I often hear people saying, "Oh, I studied French in school, but I don't remember any of that." Okay, so my teacher, my Spanish teacher, actually taught me through his example that he was right, because even if it happens that I don't speak Spanish for a while, for example, I don't forget it. I become less fluent, maybe, meaning less, how can I say, spontaneous. I have to think a little bit longer, but the structure is there.
Right.
And I can read and I can, so it's the same thing. We need that foundations. And that type of foundation is probably the most boring part of the journey, or the most challenging part. I'm not sure, because it requires lots of discipline. But it gives you a lot. That's why I like structures when I'm teaching. I like schemes, tables, charts. You have to see.
Yes.
You have to see, and then with that, you can create your own story. But you have the structure. You just change the pieces of the puzzle, right? But the structure is there. You change color, you change story, you change adjectives, you make it something that is nice, you make it amazing, but always within the same structure.
Right.
And so it's like a universal tool that then you can adapt depending on the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. In yoga, we have something known as tapas and spanda. Tapas is sort of the structure. The literal tapas, yeah, like the Spanish
tapas.
Yeah. The literal the translation of tapas is discipline. And it's the doing the thing regularly, so creating that structure. And then the spanda is once you have the structure, spanda is the spirit that sort of flows within that structure. So that's the color, that's the adjectives, that's the beauty. But the tapas, the structure, is important, because without the structure, spanda is just floating all over the place. In this case, with language, without the structure, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, exactly. Even if you use amazing words, if you don't put them together in a structured way, their deep meaning is going to be lost, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
This is what I try to, and I hope I succeed in doing that. Try to explain when I meet my students. Structures are key.
Well, I know from experiencing you as a teacher, you're an amazing teacher, honestly. Of all the language teachers that I've had, you've impacted me in so many ways. So thank you. And also the other students in our class, we all love you. So what you had said earlier about, even if you don't speak it often, you come back to it, you still have the structure. Yesterday, a friend from Milano texted me, and he only speaks Italian. So he was saying there were some things that I had to check for understanding, but it was a lot easier than I thought it would be, because it was still in there. So
because you have a good structure, because you were a good student,
and I had an amazing teacher.
You were a good student.
Oh my God, Claudia, thank you so much for today, for this conversation, for opening your heart and just being your full self in this space. It means so much to me. Oh my gosh, and we have so much to talk about because we didn't talk about Dante. We didn't talk about that poem If that you introduced me to. So we're going to have you back for sure. And I just love you so, so very much. Thank you.
I love you too, Paolo. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my stories. Thank you, Paolo.
Once again, a major grazie to Claudia Buscemi Prestigiacomo. It's a true honor to have her on the podcast today. So thank you so much for listening. And lovers, remember, we are in Living Spiritfully Facebook group. So drop in, let us know what you thought about the conversation. If there's anything else to add, love to hear that. And remember, every Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I read children's stories to you in the Living Spiritfully Facebook group. So check the link in the show's notes. Also check all of Claudia's links because her website's amazing. She's got some amazing blog posts. She's a wonderful writer as well. So if you are interested in learning a second language, check out her blog posts, check out her website, just check her out altogether. And remember, it would mean the world to me and all of us that are on this podcast if you subscribe, review, share, anything to help us get the word out. We would greatly appreciate it. That's enough for me today. I will see you again in 2 weeks for another episode of Heart to Heart. Bye for now.